Imagine the most profitable product ever invented. No factory, no shipping, no raw materials, no warehouse. Yet it prints money day after day because you buy it with something more valuable than cash: your future. That product is debt. Most people think debt is just a tool. Borrow now, pay later. But the real invention isn't borrowing. It's interest. Interest turns time into profit. It monetizes tomorrow. And once you understand that, debt stops looking neutral and starts looking like the most successful business model in history. A normal product gets paid once. Debt gets paid again and again, month after month, year after year. That's why debt became bigger than money, bigger than banks, bigger than governments. It became the operating system. So how did it happen? Early civilizations understood something modern societies like to forget. Uncontrolled debt can break a country. If too many people fall into obligations they can't escape, you don't get growth. You get collapse. That's why some ancient systems use periodic resets and forgiveness, because leaders knew if the bottom can't breathe, the top can't rule. But then the world scaled up. Empires grew. Wars got bigger. And a brutal equation appeared. War is the most expensive policy humans ever invented. A ruler always faces two options: raise taxes openly and risk revolt, or borrow and make the costs feel invisible. Borrowing was politically cleaner, so debt became the state's favorite weapon. And then came the breakthrough: government bonds. The idea is simple and terrifying. A state can sell promises as an asset. Give us money today. We'll pay you interest. And the guarantee is future taxes. That's when debt becomes a product with a built-in customer: the public. Because the wealthy lend, and ordinary people, through taxes and prices, end up funding the interest payments. By 1694, England formalized this logic through institutions tied to war financing, including the Bank of England. And once that model exists, debt stops being an emergency tool. It becomes a permanent institution. New debt pays old debt. Old debt rolls into new debt. Promises become tradable. Finance becomes a machine that can run even when cash is scarce, because it runs on trust. But the real transformation happens when debt leaves palaces and enters living rooms. At some point, borrowing stops being rare and becomes normal. Mortgage, car loan, credit card, student loan. Now, debt isn't just how empires fund wars. It's how families fund life. And that's the final upgrade. Debt becomes a mass market consumer product. Buy now. Pay later. Upgrade your life today. Let future you handle it. It sounds like freedom. But it creates something far more profitable: dependence. Because the more society runs on debt, the more every paycheck becomes a pipeline, flowing upward through interest. And once you see the pattern, you realize debt isn't just money. Debt is leverage. Debt is influence. Debt is control, especially when the debt is not in your own currency. The moment a country owes in someone else's money, one shock can turn an economy into a hostage situation. This isn't theory. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, rising interest rates sharply increased repayment burdens, and in 1982, Mexico announced it could not meet its debt obligations, a key moment in the wider developing country debt crisis. And here's the trap: when you can't pay, you borrow again. But the next loan doesn't arrive as help. It arrives as terms: cut spending, raise taxes, sell assets, rewrite policy. Debt becomes a lever. Then the modern era adds another upgrade. It doesn't just lend money, it sells debt. Loans get packaged, sliced, and traded. Debt turns into a tradable commodity, and a dangerous incentive appears. The goal stops being, will this be repaid? The goal becomes, can this be sold? That's how you build a system that rewards volume over stability. And when that system cracks, you get crises that start in finance, but spread into everything else. Yet the machine survives because the world is addicted to rolling promises. As of 2025, a widely cited market estimate puts global debt around $337.7 trillion, with global debt to GDP around 324%. That number matters for one reason. It signals a civilization that runs on refinancing. Governments don't plan to pay it off. They plan to roll it over. Because in the modern world, debt behaves like a subscription, renewed to keep the system breathing. And now the punchline. Debt is the most profitable product in history because it turns time into cash flow. It turns fear into compliance. It turns the future into collateral. And over time, it concentrates wealth because every interest payment is a transfer from the many who owe to the few who own the promises. If this changed how you see the world, subscribe to Hidden Money History. Because the real story of money is always a story of power. And once you see the machine, you can't unsee it.